I'm a very lucky person. I get to drive on a pretty frequent basis some very, very nice cars. So it's quite rare for me that I come across a car that I am genuinely nervous and excited to drive. And today is one of those days, because for the first time in my life, I am going to get behind the wheel of the iconic Subaru Impreza. So today, for the first time in quite a while, I seem to be in the correct car for the conditions. Now this is a 2001?
2001.
So this is a 2001 WRX. It is not an STI, which I think is the model that people tend to think of when they think of a Subaru. Now, for most people, myself included, really the most significant difference between them is the lack of a massive, great big spoiler on the back. Now, this car's owner has actually put on a JDM spoiler from one of the Hawkeye models. So for the Subaru nuts out there, apparently you'll know what that is. I, however, am utterly and totally clueless when it comes to these cars. Oh, it pulls nice. Before today, I'd only ever driven one Subaru, and that was an automatic Legacy that was on its last legs, and I think that was definitely not a car that's representative of the Subaru brand. This, however, is. But coming into it though, I really wasn't sure what to expect. Now this car has been lightly modified. It's got an exhaust mod, it's got uprated injectors and a few other things, bigger turbo, so it's now pushing out around 330 horsepower and about 330 pound-foot.
Yeah, around about the same.
Around about, so 330 brake, 330 torque. The thing that's impressing me most at the moment is the gearbox. Now the STI's got a 6-speed box and the regular WRX may do with its 5-speed unit. Truth be told, I expected it to be pretty rubbish. Actually, it's lovely to use. Really, really nice. The car pulls cleanly and strongly from about 3,500 RPM. The steering's really, really quite light. The car actually feels quite small. It feels really well suited to these little back roads. Now in Japan, they sold these cars, or certainly the STI in Japan, with equal length headers and a much higher red line. Of course, the performance was much better because of that, but what you lost was that iconic Subaru burble. And I think most people, certainly in the UK, will associate a Subaru with that sound. Basically, if you hear that, a Scooby's coming. That's basically it. I think for a while, these didn't really enjoy a very positive reputation because the sort of people that bought them were hooligans, basically. I mean, back in the day, these offered a huge amount of performance for the money, and you could say that they sort of still do. Unfortunately, what happened is that the hot hatch basically took over. In around 2001, when this came out, your Golf GTI would have been pushing maybe 180, 190 horsepower, something like that, I don't know. But back then, a Focus RS was doing 220 brake, something like that as standard. And these things came out with nearer to 300, all-wheel drive, and these were absolute weapons. These things used to hassle Ferraris when it came to getting across broken ground. They were awesome value for money. Sadly, 15 years on, the Impreza was still a 2-litre turbocharged Boxer 4, putting out the same amount of power that it had 15 years earlier. Whereas now, all of your hot hatches had caught up and in many cases overtaken it and were offering power outputs of well over 300 brake. So it's a bit of a shame to have seen that happen, especially when, given the fact that Mitsubishi and Subaru both left the rally championships, there's no need for the car to comply with World Rally regs anymore. To me, an Impreza has got to be big scoop, it's got to be mica blue, like it has to be, gold wheels and big wing. I just feel, I feel, so we're driving currently through a little town called Long Melville, which is basically known for its antique shops, and it's a very, very gentrified area. I drove through here one weekend and there were 3 Aston Martins at various points down this road, and I just feel like driving this through here that, you know, there's a bit of a hot fuzz scenario going on where there's people on walkie-talkies being like, yeah, there's an Impreza going down the high street, keep an eye on him. You know, I feel like a sort of troublemaker in this car. The whole thing feels really light. So this car's running on the STI suspension, and actually it's not uncomfortable at all. I'm driving across the standard issue British B road, which is pretty crap, and it's fine. I can feel the road surface, but it's not battering me. Certainly not in the same way that something like, say, the Merc CLA 45 does, which I know is a car that I have it in for, but you know, that's a very, very popular car. This actually rides really nicely. There's a benefit as well of it being a fairly light car. The lighter a car is, the easier it is to make it a nice riding car. Genuinely, before I drove this car, I expected, so I knew I was going to take it down this road, and I expected that there would be something about it which might let itself down. I thought either that heavy front end is going to play havoc. Now today I'm not pushing too hard because, as you guys can see out there, this tarmac is not normally that light. That's where it's frozen. So, but the car is doing really well. It pulls nicely. Once you're on boost, it's great. That gearbox is just, I'm shocked. I'm absolutely shocked. If I get in a Honda, it's kind of a given the gearbox is going to be amazing. Like, you get in a Toyota, it's kind of a given that the gearbox is going to be amazing. For some reason, I don't know why, I expected the gearbox to really let this car down, and it doesn't. It's got this really cute, small little metal shift knob, which is very much like the one you'd see in something like an NSX actually, or an EP3 Civic, and it's a real joy. Yeah, this is so nice. So I've been driving these roads for as long as I've been driving, and there are a lot of cars I've brought down here which are scary, not because they're so fast, but because they're so big. And this car feels just the right size. It's like it's developed explicitly for a road like this, which I guess in some ways it was.
It's almost as if it was based off a rally car.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, it's just like a rally car, man. It's amazing. They should race these things.
Oh, if only.
Yeah, it'd be nice for them to come back, wouldn't it? So, like any car of the period, when you are pushing along, fuel consumption, you don't want to know. On a run, it apparently is not too bad. Not too bad, I guess, being what, high 20s? Something like that?
I've got up to like 30 something before.
30 something. Okay. Well, I think that's acceptable. I mean, I think a lot of people look down upon consumption figures like that nowadays, but actually, my E46 330 did about 30 to the gallon. You know, our MGZS does about 29 if you're, you know, driving Miss Daisy. And so for something like this to do that, and you know, I think it's the STI is the one with the reputation for just getting rid of fuel like it's going out of fashion. Yeah, Paul's good. Gearing's good. So second is geared to 60. So it's geared just about right. The nice thing is actually that unlike a lot of modern turbocharged engines, you have to work this one to get it to move. So that's just so nice. Too many engines now just want to give you everything low down, and then when you come to press on, you suddenly realise that actually what they gave you at low RPM was everything they had to give, whereas with this one, it still needs to be driven. You know, at 2,500 RPM, there's nothing there, because you have to wait for it to sort of get moving. And now I'm not a big fan of turbo engines for that reason, but in a car like this, it's completely excusable. This is a nearly 20-year-old car, basically, and for it to not do too much till about 3.5 grand, that's fine. That's what like old 911 turbos and things were like. It's great fun. The reality is, and I think so few people are, I don't know whether people are not aware of it or they just don't want to accept it, but certainly on a day like today, and actually on most other days as well, there are many, many things slowing you down, and it's rarely the car. You've either got the road conditions, You know, if it's wet or greasy or slippery or snowy or whatever, you've got speed limits deciding, you know.
A lot of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of speed limits, and obviously people's approach to them is somewhat flexible, but you reach a point eventually where if you get caught, it's not just a case of getting a telling off or some points, that's your driving license gone. And I think most people will stop beyond that point, you know, because I think most people that drive and enjoy cars like having a driving license, you know. I certainly do. So that's going to hold you back, and then eventually you just got to realise that, hang on a minute, how fast am I actually travelling? Do I really want to be going any faster? If someone else comes around the corner and they're taking up the whole road, or there's a bus or something, you know, am I going to be able to slow down in time? So I think actually, as much as the sort of, you know, the NIMBY brake brigade will think that we're all, you know, completely irresponsible hooligans, that's actually not true at all. I think we are very thoughtful as to, well, what would happen if we went around this corner and, you know, there was a tractor taking up the road. So, and the truth of the matter is that you're going to cross ground basically as quickly in this as most things I can think of. So in real time, I know the way I release stuff on YouTube sort of muddies things a bit, but in real time, I was driving the GTR only about 4 or 5 days ago. It's a 600 horsepower Nissan GTR. By anyone's standards, that is a damn quick car. But am I actually really crossing ground much slower in this? No. You get a nice slow corner onto a straight and you want to fire out of it. Yeah, that's the GTR speciality. You know, if you need to get from here to there right away, that's what it does. This is not exactly slow. It's got adequate performance, and it's nice and it's fun and it's enjoyable, and there's loads of aftermarket parts and you can do whatever you want to them. And yeah, I genuinely came into this, I thought I wasn't going to like this. I really thought I wasn't going to like this, because it so much about it is what I don't like in cars. You know, all-wheel drive, it's not got a lot of steering feel, that's for sure. And, you know, one big turbo, you know, so you've not got a lot of power until a bit later. And I shouldn't like it. I really shouldn't like it, but I kind of do. Like, I think maybe it's because I go into it with an appreciation. I mean, this is almost a classic car now. You know, when you look at me, you're like,
coming up to it,
yeah. Some of them are like nearly like 20 years old, and you're like, actually, you know what? When you look at it in those terms, you know, and I've driven Ferraris and Porsches of this kind of era, and yeah, I can see exactly how these got their reputation, because if you just, you know, spent 60 grand on a Porsche or something back in 1998, and then someone comes up with one of these behind you, you aren't getting rid of him very easily, like, if at all.
Not especially on roads like these.
No, not in the least. I mean, I remember I did a track day it wasn't a sort of a track day, it was an airfield driving day for charity. So, you know, you give, there's a load of people there in McLarens, and I was there in a Porsche, and there's people in also Vipers and stuff. And you pay 20 quid, whatever, it goes to kids charity, and you get a ride around the airfield. Now, actually, most of the supercars, I was in a normal 911, and I was going faster than a lot of the supercars, because the surface there is at North Weald. The surface is really bad and really broken up.
Yeah, it's not great there, is it?
No, and all the supercars found out if they went too fast, they were bottoming out, and they're scraping the bottom of their cars. So they were like, no, we ain't going quick. And that, I think, that's kind of what this has, like, and it's something the Lotus does as well. If the road surface isn't great, you're like, I don't care, just bounce over it and just go around and do that. So your real world speed becomes so much higher. Yes, on a perfect surface, something like a Ferrari, you know, of the time, is going to be quicker, but the reality is, in England, coming across a perfect surface is not something that happens very frequently. Loads of grip. Great car. Yeah, I like it. That's quick enough. Blimey, even heel and toe's nice.
Yep.
Would not expect that. Just genuinely.
It's great for
perfect. That's so good. Oh, the Japanese, when they get... Wait, there you go. There you go. She will move. She will move. And again, interestingly, everyone says these things are all front heavy, understeery. Not all the time. Not all the time. I like this car. I really like this car. There you go. So that's my conclusion. 2001 Subaru WRX, not STI. Really love it.